Hi, my name is Sue, and I'm from the Ohio Energy Project, and we would like to welcome you to the Energy Education video series that we're doing in partnership with American Municipal Power for schools in their member school district communities. So how is this going to work? Below the videos on this webpage, you'll see a form. It has your contact information. You can fill that out, and we'll send you the supplies that you need to do the two different activities. Also, you'll find links to the different scripts that we'll be using to facilitate the activities, as well as different handouts and student worksheets that you can use. Those worksheets are both in Word and Google Docs, so you can tailor them to specifically meet the needs for your students in your own classroom. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to us. We would also like to encourage Ohio teachers to take full advantage of OEP's other activities as far as professional development workshops and student programs. Thanks for your commitment to energy education. Now let's get started. In this activity, we're going to be using a watt meter. There's lots of different ways you can incorporate the watt meter into your classroom, and we're going to be showing you some different ways that you can use it both for elementary students and also incorporating some calculations to use with high school students. So unless you have a high school classroom with lab counters, I would recommend plugging your watt meter into an extension cord. That will allow you to read it more easily if all your outlets are close to the floor. Also, you'll want to refer to the handout that describes some of the other functions of the watt meter. For the purpose of what we're using today, we're just going to use the watt function. Now, when you plug it in, it's going to come up to volts. That's the default setting. So it will be around 120 volts that come out of our wall outlets. The watt meter is in the center, so you're just going to hit that once. And then you can begin plugging your appliances into the watt meter. The first activity that we're going to do today is What's Up. And this is designed for elementary or middle school students. So what you'll need to do is collect some appliances either around your classroom or you can bring them in from home. I've just taken some things that we had around the office. The first thing you'll have your students do is make a hypothesis. They're going to rank the appliances that you have from what they think uses the least amount of energy to what uses the most. After they've done that individually at their seat, then you can discuss as a classroom and see if there's any consensus. From there, you're going to begin plugging your appliances into the watt meter. So the appliances that I have here, I've got an LED light bulb, I've got an incandescent light bulb, I've got an iPad, and a hairdryer. So we're going to start with the LED light bulb. So when I plug that in, it reads 7 watts. For my second appliance, I'm going to do the incandescent light bulb. And it's reading 49 watts. I'm going to plug in an iPad that's charging. It reads 11 watts. And then with the hairdryer, I'm going to put it on 3 different settings. The first setting will be on high. Next, I'm going to turn it on low. For the last reading I'm going to take, I'm going to put it on high, but this hairdryer has a cold shot feature. So I'm going to turn that on while it's on high. Were any of those results surprising for you? One thing to remember when we're talking about heating or cooling something, that's what really requires a lot of energy. So the hairdryer on high required a lot more energy than when it was on low. And then when we had it on high with the heat element removed, it used even less energy. So you can talk about that with your students, that anytime we're changing the temperature of something, it requires a lot more energy. The next activity that we're going to do involves some calculations, so it might be more appropriate for a high school class. Now, when we begin to talk about watts, that's a pretty small unit of measure. When we talk about kilowatts or 1,000 watts, that's where we get into how our homes and schools are billed for their electricity use. If we think even bigger than that, a megawatt is 1,000,000 watts. That's how electricity generation plants are measured. For example, a single wind turbine can produce about 4 megawatts of electricity, while Davis-Besse, which is a nuclear power plant on Lake Erie, generates about 900 megawatts of electricity. So we're going to go back and talk about kilowatts, because as I mentioned, that's how we are billed for our energy use. Now, when we think about energy use, we're billed not just for how much energy we use, but for how long we use it. So the kilowatt hour is the unit that is used, and that's the measure of how many kilowatts we use over 1 hour. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our calculations from the first activity, and we're going to determine how many kilowatt hours we would be charged based on how long we might use those items. So on the downloads that are below the video is a spreadsheet of some samples. So we're going to look through those samples first. All right, the first item that we're going to look at is our incandescent light bulb. And with our incandescent light bulb, we took a reading of approximately 60 watts. When we convert that to kilowatts by dividing by 1,000, it's going to be 0.06 kilowatts. Now, I'm imagining that I use this incandescent lamp at school, and I'm only going to have it on for about 7 hours during the school day. I also need to know how many days per month am I going to use this? And because it's at school, I'm only going to use it for 22 days. So we're trying to calculate how many hours during the month is the lamp on. So I'm going to multiply 7 times 22 to find out I'm going to have my lamp on 154 hours for the month. The next thing I'm going to do is now multiply that 154 hours that the device is on times the amount of energy that it uses, which is 0.06 kilowatts. So in 1 month, I'm using 9.24 kilowatts of energy to power my lamp. So now the electric division is going to send me my bill. We have to get that into kilowatt hours. What you'll need to find from your electric division is what do they charge per kilowatt hour. On my spreadsheet, I've added in 11 cents. That's the average in Ohio per kilowatt hour. So now I'm multiplying my a little more than 9 kilowatts of energy per month times 11 cents to get my electricity cost for the month, which is a little over $1. Now, if we want to take it one step further, we can calculate how many pounds of carbon dioxide is generated for every kilowatt hour that is produced when I am running my lamp. So if we're using a fossil fuel, so natural gas or coal to generate our electricity, that's 1.6 pounds of CO2 per kilowatt hour used for a monthly total of almost 15 pounds of carbon dioxide. Now let's look at another example of our hairdryer. That was about 1,500 watts, which when dividing it by 1,000 to convert it to kilowatts is 1.5 kilowatts. However, I don't use the hairdryer very long. For the sake of the math, I'm going to say I use it 6 minutes a day, which is 0.1 hour. But I do use it every day, so I'm going to multiply that times 30 days to get a monthly usage of 3 hours. If I multiply my 3 hours times the 1.5 kilowatts, that's where I get 4.5 kilowatts of energy for the entire month. When I multiply that times 11 cents per kilowatt hour, it costs 50 cents for me to run a hairdryer for 6 minutes a day for the entire month. I can also calculate again the pounds of carbon dioxide, and to run my hairdryer for a month is a little over 7 pounds of carbon dioxide. Now let's enter one of the appliances that we tested. So our wattage for the LED was 7 watts. So that is 0.007 kilowatts. Now I'm going to say that this is maybe a security light that I have outside that we're going to say that's on 12 hours a day. And this is something that runs every day, so it's going to be 30 days out of the month. So our total hours would be 360 hours, which our kilowatts for the month would be about 2.5. Multiply that times 11 cents per kilowatt hour, and we've got a little over a quarter to run our security lights for the month. Now, if we had multiple lights, we would then have to multiply that by the number of lights that we have. So what could you do with the information that you've collected? You could do an audit of your classroom and test all the electrical appliances in your classroom. Plug it into the chart so you can calculate how much electricity your classroom used for a single month. You could also talk to your school administrator or the local electric division and see if you could get a monthly utility bill for your school. Did you know that after personnel costs, energy is the second leading cost for school districts? You could talk with your class and see if there are ways that you could implement to save energy around your building. So what are some next steps that you could take? You might contact your local AMP utility or your local library and see if they have a loan program for watt meters. Then students could take them home and do an audit of their own homes. You could also contact your local utility department and see if they have energy efficiency programs in your community. Some communities have recycling incentives for old refrigerators or distribute free LED light bulbs. Check in with your local utility and see what they have available.